Welcome to the 5 phases of transformation that are needed for you to become a fit vegan if you are over the age of 50. All right. So these are the 5 phases that we bring our fit vegan members through. The first 3 are essential. The 4th one is a nice one to have. And the 5th one is an optional fun phase to go through. So the first phase that we bring everyone through is a body recomposition phase, because typically the people that come to us are ones that are wanting to decrease the amount of body fat that they have on their body and increase the amount of lean muscle mass that they have on their body, with a bigger emphasis on fat loss. And so that's where we're going to actively target fat loss on the body. On average, you want to aim to lose about 0.75 pounds to 1 pound per week of fat loss. And so if you want to lose 30 pounds, roughly it would take you 30 to 40-ish weeks roughly to accomplish that. Now, the reason why we go slower with the fat loss, there's multiple reasons. One of them is because the faster we go with the fat loss, the more calorie deficit we have to create, the hungrier you're going to be, the more cravings you're going to have. And the steeper calorie deficit that you do, the more amount of lean muscle mass you're going to lose during your transformation, because you have to understand that your body is an adaptation machine. And so if it's used to operating on a certain amount of energy intake and a certain amount of energy output, and then you drastically change those two where you severely cut your calories, let's just say you do the usual thing that you hear online of removing 500 calories a day to lose 1 pound a week, or 1,000 calories a day to lose 2 pounds a week. Well, if you're an average woman, your maintenance calorie is going to be about 2,200 calories. That means if you want to lose 2 pounds a week because you're in a rush and not giving yourself enough of a timeline, that means you're going to be consuming 1,200 calories at the start of your fat loss. I don't know for you, but that's almost half your food intake. And I would be hungry eating that amount of food. So I would be cranky. I would have low energy. I would not feel my best. I would have bigger cravings. And guess what? Once your body's used to that lower amount of food, it's going to plateau. It's going to adjust, right? Because all your body wants, again, it's a survival machine. It goes, okay, so your body doesn't know that there's a Whole Foods around the corner or a Trader Joe's, right? So you're just like, I'm in the middle of the desert. I don't have access to as much food as possible, but I still have a high amount of energy output throughout the day. And so I need to optimize and slow down my metabolism so that I can function on this little amount of food to do all of these things that I do throughout the day. And so your metabolism is going to slow down to adjust to be able to operate on less food to do the things that you ask of it. Once that happens, your body goes back into homeostasis. Guess what? In order to continue losing fat, you have to remove more calories or do more exercise. So you can see that from 1,200, there's not a lot of wiggle room to kind of go lower, right? You don't want to go down to 1,000 calories or 900 calories. It's unhealthy for multiple reasons, but one of them, there's going to be a lack of vitamins and minerals coming into your body because you're physically not eating as much food, and you're going to be very tired and low energy. And in a higher energy output, you're going to be more tired because you're not eating enough. And so it's way better to go slow with your calorie deficits so that you can maintain your energy high. You can increase your chance of retaining as much lean muscle mass as possible. And second, the reason why your bodies will retain as much lean muscle mass as possible is because if you do a small decrease, your body doesn't go through, oh, we're in the middle of the desert and we're drastically low on food. Your body goes like, oh, I noticed a little bit of a difference. Let's start to use some fat as a source of energy to kind of compensate for this little deficit. Just slow down the metabolism a little bit. Because if you go in that steep of a calorie deficit, your body will, again, slow down the metabolism, but it will also look internally. What are the things from my body that are demanding a lot of energy? Lean muscle mass requires a lot of energy in order to be maintained. And so if you're in that steep of a calorie deficit, your body will prioritize vital functions like your organs, your heart, your lungs, your brain, all of these things. Lean muscle mass is not super essential to life. Like, obviously you need some, but you can be very skinny and live a long time, right? You can have like not a lot of lean muscle mass and live a long time to a certain extent. And so your body will start to burn through lean muscle mass because it's too demanding in terms of energy, because there's only little coming in from your food and you have this high energy output. So your body starts to burn through lean muscle mass. It's like a sinking ship. Ultimately, there's a sinking ship or a sinking boat. You're going to throw the heaviest items out to try to stay afloat as much as possible. That's what your body's going to do with your muscle. That's why you don't want to go fast with your body recomposition phase. And we aim to go a little bit slower so we can build more lean muscle, just focus on losing fat, not have crazy cravings, and not be hungry ultimately. And especially when you do whole food plant-based, you're going to be extremely satiated with the amount of food you're going to be able to consume. So that's phase 1 for body recomposition, where you're actively going to focus on losing fat, tricking the body into losing fat basically because of its natural survival mechanism that would kick in, and retaining as much lean muscle mass as possible. Now, a lot of people think that they can put on 10 pounds of lean muscle during a body recomposition phase. Only if you are on enhancers will you be able to do that. If you're on steroids or things like that, like, yeah, you'll be able to put on a ton of lean muscle mass while you're in a calorie deficit, while you're exercising more. If you're a natural person, like with myself and everyone that we coach, you're not going to be able to put on 10 pounds of lean muscle while you're going to a calorie deficit. The primary goal is to retain as much lean muscle mass as possible and put some on a little bit. We do have a lean muscle building phase that comes later on in the transformation, but trying to put on a ton of muscle while losing a ton of fat at the same time, it's like trying to turn left and turn right in the same time in your car. It's just not going to happen. You have to commit to one path. Once you've gotten there, then you commit to the other path. So I would say if you're currently carrying excess body fat, focus on losing it, get more comfortable in your body, and then let's put on some lean muscle. That's why we follow these current phases, because of that flow, because it makes more sense. So phase one, we're improving body recomposition. So if you're that person that's stuck, or you're carrying excess body fat, I would say lean out and then put some lean muscle after. If you're someone that is skinny fat, right? So this is a term that comes up often in my videos. Skinny fat means that when you have a t-shirt on, you look skinny. And when you're in a bathing suit, you look fat, okay? That is what skinny fat means. Personally, I grew up skinny fat. So my path of preference was to get lean first. Like, yes, you're gonna get smaller, but at least you won't have that jiggly fat on your body, and you're gonna feel tighter and more toned and stronger and feel good. Then do a lean muscle building phase. Because personally, I've done both at different times in my life, where when I was skinny fat, at another point, I just did a big bulk. So I got bigger and I put a ton of muscle, but I also put on a ton of fat with it. And so I got chunkier and I was very uncomfortable in my body. My jeans were tight. I was bumping stuff with my butt because it was too big. So I didn't like it too much. So I much prefer the path of leaning out first and then putting on lean muscle after. But there's a step that goes in between those two. So just to recap, phase one, body recomposition. Phase two, reverse dieting. It is something that the majority of the world doesn't do. If you look at the stats, over 95% of people put the weight back on within 6 months to a year after having lost it. A lot of that is because that they use unsustainable methods to be able to lose the weight ultimately. But second is because, like I've explained for phase one, your metabolism will naturally slow down as you decrease the amount of food and increase the amount of energy output that you're going to do. And so at the end of your fat loss, whether you've lost, 10 pounds, 20 pounds, 30 pounds, 60 pounds, 80 pounds, or 100 pounds, your metabolism will have slowed down drastically. It is a natural adaptation process from the body when you're going into that state. So there's a strategy to speed up your metabolism once you're done losing the weight. So I'm gonna use a fire analogy to explain and illustrate what that looks like. So any of you have ever gone camping? You have small pieces of wood and you want to start a fire. Let's just say you manage to turn on the fire and you have this really small flame. That is your metabolism post-transformation. Because most people use unsustainable and drastic methods to lose the weight, once they're done using whatever method of keto and Atkins or whatever thing they've done to lose the weight, they get excited because they've reached their goal and now they can stop doing this darn thing that they really don't enjoy doing. They don't enjoy eating that way for the rest of their life. And so they go back to eating more food or more of the food that they were eating before because they've lost the weight. But the thing is, your metabolism is this small flame, and that's the equivalent of throwing a big log of wood on the tiny flame. If you've ever gone camping, you know that doesn't work. The small flame can't handle the big log of wood. So how do we increase the size of the flame? How do we increase the size of your metabolism so that you can throw this big log of wood and the flame can't handle it? You ever gone camping? You just throw smaller pieces of wood on the little fire over time, and eventually it grows. You can throw bigger pieces of wood, bigger, and eventually you have a raging fire where you can throw that log of wood on there and the fire can't handle it. It's the same principle with your body. And so instead of giving you wood, we're going to give you additional calories. And typically we like to do that in the form of carbohydrate, just because it's more easily digestible and readily to be used as energy, because it'll get converted to glycogen and your body's going to use it simply because you are in a deficit and your body's going to kind of see this increase of like, hey, there's extra energy. Let's use it right away. We don't need to store it. Fat typically takes longer to digest and is a harder conversion to glycogen, which is your body's preferred source of energy, and therefore is more likely to be stored as fat, right? Your body's a little bit of a sponge at the end of a fat loss phase. That's why you need to use this with precaution. We do the same thing. So instead of adding pieces of wood, we add food, right? We slowly add food on a daily basis. We monitor how the body's responding for a week. And then from there, we make another decision. Can we increase more food? And can we increase more food? Can we increase more food? So I'm gonna give you an example of what that looks like. So for phase one, I didn't really share a story just because we have hundreds of Fit Vegan Success Story episodes. We have over 900 of them. We have probably over 100 Fit Vegan Success Story podcast episodes on the YouTube channel that you can go and watch. We have a lot of story demonstrating what that looks like. We've had hundreds of people go through the reverse dieting phase as well. But one in particular that I want to share with you is one of our alumni members, Jill, when she came into the program, she was eating about 900 to 1,000 calories a day and doing about an hour to an hour and a half of cardio every single day, right? That's what she had been doing from years of her trying to lose weight on her own and her metabolism slowing down and feeling the need to do more and more and eating less and less. And it led her to that place where she didn't have a lot of wiggle room to lose weight. And so when she came in, I was like, hey, for you, we don't need to do phase 1, improve body recomposition, because there's nowhere to go, right? I'm not going to go under 1,000 calories of food. That's unhealthy. We're not going to do more cardio, always doing more. But if I drastically cut your cardio and drastically increase your food, you're going to put on a ton of fat. But for you, it'd be beneficial to reverse diet. And so again, it works in that principle, but also after having lost the fat. And so what we led her to do, she was eating about like 900 to 1,000 calories a day, doing about an hour and a half of cardio every single day. By the end of her 4 months of reverse dieting, she was doing about 30 to 45 minutes of cardio a week for the whole week. So in 1 week, she was doing less cardio than she was doing per day before. And she was eating over 2,000 calories and her body recomposition improved. You can see in her photos that little baby abs started to kick in. So we'll probably put the image on the screen here, but there was a significant difference in her body recomposition. And we did that through slowly increasing the food and slowly decreasing the energy output that she was having. And so as a part of reverse dieting, like, yes, we want to slowly increase the food, but yes, we want to slowly decrease the amount of exercise going on so that the body slowly gets used to less energy output. And so for those of you that are wondering, what are the math of how much calories I add? How do I calculate my initial calories to go into the phase 1 body recomposition? How do I know how much to add into reverse dieting? Don't worry about it. I created a full guide that explains all of it with all the equations, all the numbers, and a ton of examples for you that you can have for free. Down below in the description, you'll be able to download it as the first link at the top. I just figured that I put it in the guide because it'd be easier than going over all the numbers on this video because there's a lot of numbers ultimately. So you can download that free guide down below for yourself. Now, that is reverse dieting, and that's going to allow us to speed up your metabolism post-transformation so that at the end, you can eat more food to maintain your new body, right? And what we've seen throughout the years is about 80% of the time, people end up staying around the same weight for their transformation after we're done adding an additional 800 to 1,000 calories of food on top of their food intake. I would say about 10% of the time, some people end up losing a little bit more weight. Typically, we've seen that in people that have been in a calorie deficit for a very long time and have been under eating for a long time. Their body, I feel, is like grateful for more food. And in the other 10% of the time, which is worst case scenario, people put on like a pound or two, like a few pounds, and on top of where they ended up for their fat loss. So let's say they lost 40 pounds, maybe they finish at a 37-pound fat loss as an example. But the trade-off is that they get to consume 800 to 1,000 calories more on top of what they were eating at the end of their fat loss phase, which represents a significant amount of energy intake, which not, again, is more food, but it's more vitamins, it's more minerals. So more building blocks for you to feel better and feel healthier, and more energy for you to have throughout the day. And you've lost all that weight. And again, as we're slowly increasing the food, you are still strength training. So you're still working on tearing those muscle fibers and repairing them. So you're slowly building more lean muscle. Reverse dieting kind of acts a little bit as like a lean muscle building phase, but not as intense because you're still theoretically in a deficit at that point. So that is reverse dieting. Again, if you aren't ready to do that phase, it's not even worth it to take on phase 1 of body recomposition. It's not worth it at all to do any form of fat loss process if you're not ready to do the reverse dieting process, because you're just gonna have a slow metabolism at the end of the fat loss, and you have to increase it. You can increase it in 2 ways. Slowly, like I said, so that you stay lean and tight as you're doing it, or you can just increase your food intake in one go, put on a bunch of fat, and your metabolism will catch up at one point, but you've put on a bunch of fat. And that's why most people put all the weight back on or more than what they had to lose in the first place. That's why this is essential post fat loss if you want to keep the weight off and be able to eat more food, which ultimately will lead to more sustainability. Like in our program, those are the 2 must phases if you work with us. We don't take on anyone just for phase 1, just because it's not the full transformation. I don't care if someone loses 20, 40, or 60 pounds. And if they don't do reverse dieting, they're just gonna put the weight back on within 6 months to a year. The stats show it. And so that's why our stats is that people keep the weight off for years after having lost it, as long as they continue eating whole food, plant-based, all their food, and strength training, right? I will put a disclaimer on reverse dieting because I've had some people tell me like, well, I can put on some weight after the reverse dieting, even though I speed up my metabolism. Absolutely. If you go through phase 1 and you lose 40 pounds, you go through phase 2 and you do everything perfectly, and after phase 2, you start eating Twinkies and donuts and you stop strength training at least 3 times a week, you stop taking care of yourself, you will put on a ton of fat, right? There's no guarantees for life, but this puts you in the ultimate position where your metabolism is sped up, you have to continue exercising because it is a benefit for you as you get older. We want to talk about sarcopenia, we want to talk about osteoporosis. Both those things get greatly improved with strength training / resistance training. And obviously eating a whole food plant-based lifestyle, reducing your risk of all these chronic illnesses, reducing inflammation in the body. And so yes, you will have to continue exercising after this. You don't have to exercise a ton because we're going to slowly decrease the exercise output as we go through reverse dieting. But guess what? Even though you speed up your metabolism and go through reverse dieting, you still have to eat some healthy food. You still have to exercise, okay? So that is for phase 2 of reverse dieting. Now, from there, some people choose to just maintain from there and kind of go on their own. But there's another phase that's extremely beneficial, especially if you're over the age of 50. Like I've mentioned, sarcopenia and osteoporosis is a very real thing. And so if you want to combat the decrease in lean muscle mass that naturally happens with aging, if you want to strengthen your bones, then doing a lean muscle building phase will be extremely beneficial, because at that point, we will have increased your food back up to your theoretical maintenance, to your maintenance amount of food, where you're no longer in a deficit and you have enough energy to recover from what you're asking of your body. Now, if we want to go into a lean muscle building phase, we have to go in a slight surplus on the calorie side, right? Just a few hundred calories, because if we go too much, then we're severely overeating and we're gonna put on a ton of fat. So that's why we go a little bit on a calorie deficit, and we change the workout to be a little bit more heavy and a little bit more intense, so we can put an emphasis on actually putting on lean muscle tissue. So I should do it time-wise for the phase 2 for reverse dieting. If you do it with a coach, it takes about 4 months to do a reverse diet. If you're doing it on your own, I would say 6 to 8 months, because you don't have anyone with experience monitoring you. So you should go slower because it's going to be safer. And all that's going to be listed in the guide for you as to what path to choose. But at a minimum 4 months, on the high end 12 months, I've done reverse dieting for a year at one point, but it's not sexy for most people. So 4 months, I would say, is kind of the fastest if you have some guidance. Phase 2, lean muscle building phase. That one is 6 to 12 months easy. For those of you that think you'll be able to put on an insane amount of lean muscle as a natural person exercising, you're going to be highly deceived, because, you know, in 6 months, you can put on like 5 to 10 pounds of muscle. Like if you're pushing hard, you're extreme, you're on top of your nutrition. In a year, 10 to 15 pounds of lean muscle. Like 15 pounds is a lot in a year of like pure lean muscle tissue. I'm not talking about on the scale 15 pounds more. I'm talking about pure lean muscle tissue. If you go do a DEXA scan, it takes time. So you can see that 10 to 15 pounds in a year, that would take 10 to 15 weeks to lose in terms of fat. So it takes a lot longer to build lean muscle, but it's extremely beneficial because yes, as you get older, there's naturally going to be a decrease in lean muscle tissue. And the more lean muscle mass you have on, the more you're going to be able to protect your body as you're getting older, right? So, you know, as we get older, some people end up falling. But when you fall and you injure yourself in your 70s or 80s or 90s, the recovery time is a lot longer than when you're in your 20s and your 30s. And so there are benefits to prevention, to ensuring that you have enough strength, stability, and mobility so that you don't have those injuries that could lead you to have an extremely long recovery time. So it's better to prevent and protect than to have to recover from something that could have easily been prevented. And so if you want to do a lean muscle building phase, again, all the calculations will be in the guide down below. You can download it for free, but several 100 calorie surplus, up the intensity of the training, and you can do it for at least 6 to 12 months to get some decent results. Now we move into phase 4, post lean muscle building phase. Once you've put on the amount of lean muscle mass that you want, then it's time to transition more into a maintenance phase. So you're in a good position, you are strength training, you don't need to actively put on lean muscle because you're in a good position, but you want to maintain and put on a little bit. In the bodybuilding world, they call that main gaining. So maintaining and gaining at the same time is a very slow rate of gaining lean muscle because we're not actively putting an emphasis on it. But it is a good position to be once you're done a lean muscle building phase. So at maintenance, that's where you want to transition more towards intuitive style eating. The reason that we don't preach intuitive style eating at the beginning is because if you are currently overweight and not exercising a lot and not eating healthy food, if you intuitively listen to what your body wants, you're gonna eat some shit food and you're not going to exercise because you're already not doing that thing and your body's obviously not craving it, right? So we need to kind of build the habits into your body, get some practice into your body for you to learn how to structure meals. I'll have a fun analogy for you in a second, but you need to kind of go through that phase so that you can look as to how to build a meal. Like you'll listen to your body, like, okay, I'm hungry. What am I hungry for? Okay, I want to make a meal. I want to make a Buddha bowl. I want to make a salad. I want to make something colder, something warmer, depending on the time of the year. What do I want? Something heavy in carbs, something heavier in fat, depending on how you're feeling in the time of the year. And okay, I'm going to have this meal. What should the proportions be? you would have had enough practice at that point to learn that there needs to be a little more plant-based protein on your dish, right? Maybe you put some heavier ingredients if it is colder outside, some little spices to kind of heat it up. Like, you'll learn how to have the right proportions depending on what your body is craving. But again, I'm not going to ask you what you're craving if you're currently overweight and eating shit food, because you're already doing that, right? We want to change the pattern inside of your body. And so the way that I like to explain phase 4 is throughout phase 1, 2, and 3 is just like Mr. Miyagi in Karate Kid. He's been teaching Daniel, right? Wax on, wax off throughout the movie. So as you're going through phase 1 and phase 2 and phase 3, right? You're following the recipes, you're following meal plans, you're structuring your meals. So you're doing the action, right? Wax on, wax off. You're doing the workouts. You're seeing how the workouts are structured. You're seeing how the workouts have progression built into them. You're seeing how your body is changing. You're seeing how you're making different decisions when it comes to food after a stressful day, when there's an emergency, when it's last minute, we don't have anything prepped. Like, you've gone through enough wax on, wax off that by phase 4, it's your opportunity to stand on your own 2 feet and defend yourself, right? To go into the world and have your first, quote unquote fight, because you've practiced enough at this point. And I'm going to be honest with you, you're going to get your butt whooped on your first fight. The first time that you stand alone and you've just practiced wax on and wax off, you might get hit a few times, but that's okay, because you have the bulk of the training in, and then you get to learn in the real world, if that makes sense, right? So the whole way that I've structured the program in the phases is Mr. Miyagi, wax on, wax off, okay? So that's phase 4, maintenance, roughly about 6 months to really kind of get in tune with what your body wants, how to structure your food, get detached from, tracking some food or following a meal plan of any sort. So you have an understanding of how to eat that way without having to follow a structure on paper or a plan of any sort. Now, we transition to phase 5. Again, that one's optional in the program, but I would say maybe 20% of people go through it. It's the athletic phase. It's the fun phase. There's a lot of people that we've coached throughout the year. They, struggle with their weight for a long time, and they've always had this goal of potentially running a 5K, a 10K, a half marathon, doing a triathlon, doing an Ironman, doing some type of physical event, hiking a specific trail, or doing a cycling trip in Italy. We had some of our members do that. They always wanted to do these things, but they didn't have the level of physical fitness or bodily fitness to be able to accomplish these things. And now that they've lost the weight, they've sped up their metabolism, they've put on lean muscle, they're in great shape, and they know how to fuel themselves, now they want to take on that next challenge. They want to see what they're able to do. Because I promise you, once you get in shape, in proper shape for the first time in your life, and you eat healthy food and you're in a good position, and you just mentally know that you're in control of yourself, it is a fun place to be, because you just now got not your head out of the water, you got your whole body out of the water. It's like, great, what can I accomplish now, right? I've mastered this thing that I've struggled with for so long. And then people get excited about physical goals. You do a 5K, you're like, wow, I never thought I could do that, and I just did it. Can I do a 10K? Can I do a half marathon? Can I do a triathlon? And so I would say, like, again, about 20% of people go towards that. The rest of them is like, I feel phenomenal, and I want to use this additional mental space that I've gained out of not worrying about food, exercise, or my body to spend more time with my family, with my kids, or in their business or in their career, right? Because at the end of the day, I used to be 80 pounds overweight at one point, and I know what it's like to have that little voice in the back of your head of like, hey, you chunky monkey, you shouldn't eat this. You should go to the gym and do this. You shouldn't do that. And then pinching your stomach and be like, this shouldn't be there. You should do something about this. There's something so beautiful and relieving once you get rid of that little voice in the back of your head. And I want every single one of you to experience this. And so that's why I want to share these 5 phases with you, so you have an understanding of what needs to happen for you to have an incredible transformation for yourself. Obviously, we can bring you through all those 5 phases inside of our Fit Vegan coaching program, because that is what we do. We've been doing this for almost 5 years now. It's over 900 successful transformation. We're really good at what we do. We're backed by top plant-based doctors. We've been published in a ton of different places. And so if you want our help, there's a link down below where you can book your free application call to work with us. If not, follow these 5 phases, download the guide, give it a shot for yourself at first. If you have any questions, just feel free to reach out by email or on social media or in the comment down below. We'd love to serve you and help you on your transformation. But I hope this helps to paint the path of what needs to happen for you to have an incredible transformation, so that you actually reach a goal and understand that this can actually be sustainable for yourself. And so if you enjoy these types of video, again, this is a little bit newer style of video, because typically I would record this as a podcast, but this is just recorded for YouTube. So if you enjoy these videos, let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to subscribe so you get notified when new episodes, new videos come out, and go and download that guide, because it's gonna be extremely helpful in figuring out where to start and how to progress from there. Hope you have an incredible day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.